you've got to find ways to take care of yourself, because when you don't, it turns into your body telling you you're not taking care of yourself by manifesting physical illness. So it's super important for you to take care of your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical being. So try to get out and move when you can. Try to nourish your body in a healthy way, drinking lots of water, making sure you're trying to get plenty of sleep. And again, I know it's not always easy, but it is so important. You cannot fill anyone else's cup when yours is empty.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast, where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. You'll leave with at least one new piece of inspiration or information to help you keep going north every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special awesome human for you today, my folks. Because in the words of one of my favorite video game characters of all time, Big Smoke, it's time to return the favor, baby, because it's a host-to-host special. Because we got another bookcaster in the wonderful building, folks, another bookcaster. Because this lovely lady right here, not only is she a fellow podcast host of the super special awesome podcast, Awaken Your Inner Awesome, she's also the author of 2 magical books, especially one of them titled Beautifully Broken, The Spiritual Woman's Guide to Thriving, Not Simply Surviving After Breakup or Divorce, and also a life coach and Reiki practitioner. So this wonderful lady is a Jill of all trades. So Jack has to step out the way yet again. So let's give it up for Miss M.O. herself, Miss Melissa Oatman. How you doing today, Melissa?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. Ever since finding you a few months ago, listening to Dr. Allison J.K., I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep her on my radar, see if she's still going. And she's not only going, she's thriving too. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. As with all introductions, you know they're not allowed to be 75 days long, so mind filling in any cavities I missed about you?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you pretty much touched on everything. I am sort of the Jill of all trades in a good way, hopefully.
Yes, indeed. It's a good way. It's a good way with all the O's, indeed. That's right. Oh, yeah. There was something I forgot. You're a twin mom, if I'm not mistaken. You have twins.
Yes, I do. I have twins who are 19. They graduated last year, and we got to go through that whole pandemic and go through the virtual graduation and all of those lovely things. So, yes, keeps you busy.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Keeps you busy, indeed. That's right. Maybe giving the Energizer Bunny some competition?
Yeah, I think so. I think I am.
Oh, good. Alrighty. That's good. That's right. Give the Energizer Bunny some competition. That's right. Let them know the Duracell came first with the bunny. My goodness. Well, since I haven't missed anything introduction, mind giving us a bit about your backstory? Because it's one heck of a powerful backstory with all the stuff that you've been through with the divorce and all that, well, lack of wonderful stuff, I should say.
Yeah, I've had quite a story, but as we've talked about before, and I said, I think all people who go through a lot end up making something beautiful out of it, and it shapes who they are and allows them to know how strong they truly are. And that is definitely the case with me. I grew up, I'm also a twin. I grew up in a family where my parents divorced when I was 3. And so I had a single mom who was raising 3 kids, and it was a struggle for her. Money was tight. She didn't have a lot of time. She had to work. So she eventually went back and got her teaching degree when I was in high school. She totally shifted careers. And so that was sort of a model for me. I went on to college and got a degree in finance and German. I was going to do international business. I got my first job as a finance manager and hated it, hated every moment of it. And also at the same time, I met a very toxic person that I ended up marrying. And one of those situations where I was love bombed in the beginning to the point that I didn't see all of the signs. And I ended up getting married and I got pregnant with my twins. And I stayed home because it was more expensive to work than to stay home and take care of kids because of childcare costs. So I stayed home to take care of them. And it was during that time that I realized how I just went through a complete and total depression. I think that part of it was postpartum depression, but I think a big part of it was just the realization that I was not happy at all in that relationship, and my self esteem fell through the floor. It plummeted because I would be told simultaneously that I was an angel and also called the most horrible things imaginable by this person who was supposed to love me forever, right? He was very controlling. So when my twins were about a year old, a little over, I realized that I was basically a zombie. So even though I was physically present with them, I was not present with them. And that was not fair to them. It was not fair to me. They deserve to have a mom who was happy, and I deserve to be happy. So I did the very difficult thing. I asked my husband for a divorce. I wanted to leave. And it was not easy. And of course, he fought that every step of the way. But I luckily had a lot of family support. So I ended up leaving him when my twins were about a year old. And I did not want to go back into finance again. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. So I ended up substitute teaching because my mom said, well, you can do that and you can, if there are days you don't want to do it, you don't have to. So I substitute taught, loved it, and decided to go back to school to get my teaching certificate. So I did that. I was subbing during the day, going to school at night. And about a year and a half later, I had my teaching degree. And so I got my first teaching job. I was a German teacher. And life went on for many years. I didn't date or, I was so busy being the single mom life. And when my children were in high school, my daughter said, Mom, you need to get out there and date because my ex husband had remarried. And she said, you need to get out there and find somebody. So she helped me fill out my online dating profile. And we had all the fun of looking through all the weird people on the online dating apps. And I met someone who was a nice guy, and we dated for about 6 months, but it ended up blowing up at the end, and it led me to this moment of like, why do you keep picking the wrong guys? Why are you making the same mistakes? And there has to be more to life than just what you're doing, like this getting up and working, and there's no fun. So I went through what I would call a spiritual awakening. And I was in the what I call the dark night of the soul, where I was questioning everything and why am I here? Why am I in this job that is just now no longer as fulfilling as it once was? And I can't find a relationship, and where am I? Why am I? Who am I? I went through all those questions. And I found a podcast that I started listening to. And the podcaster was also a Reiki practitioner and like into spirituality. So I consumed about every episode I could in about 2 weeks, and I think it was over 100 episodes, and decided that I wanted to work with her. And I ended up trying to find out as much as I could about spirituality and where do we come from and all of those things. And I also started writing my book. It really started off as just a cathartic journal writing experience for me. I really didn't think it was going to be a book, but the more I wrote, the more I realized, hey, this could be a book. There's all these are turning into chapters. And I don't know, it was like I was writing and it was coming out of me so furiously, and it just felt like it wasn't even me writing it. I don't know if that makes sense, but in about probably 3 or 4 months time, I had a whole book. And that was just from writing here and there. And so then I decided, hey, I want to start a podcast because I want other people to understand that you can get through this time in your life when everything feels dark. I started learning about EFT and meditation and all of these different awesome tools that you can use to help you feel better. So I really got into all of that. I took a Reiki course and started doing the healing work and realized that that is where my calling was, which eventually led me to doing life coaching with people, doing readings for people, and just led to a lot of other things. But I'm most proud of the book because it's my story of how I left a toxic and abusive relationship and how other people can do it. And it's part my story, but part advice and tips and tools for how you can get through it, and uses a lot of humor. I always tell my friend that I should get some royalties for all the Karen jokes that are out there because I started that in my book. And he laughed.
Ah.
Yes, you should. Like the jokes really took off after my book came out. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Oh yeah, the Karen invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not going to highlight that though, because there's so much to unpack with you. Because it's interesting because you yourself were born a twin, then you eventually gave birth to twins of your own,
Mhm.
and when you were 3, your parents divorced, and then comes to find out the guy who was love bombing you was a little bit on the crazy side of the game, so you had to divorce him when the twins were 1, and then being able to just really take all of those moments and what you've learned and really being curious and expanding yourself knowledge and spiritually wise to be able to get to where you are today. So it's definitely some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I've been through a lot. And that's just up to the point where I wrote the book and then started my own business, started my own podcast. And I started my podcast thinking, like, oh, maybe 10 people will listen. And at first, that's, you know how it is when you start a podcast. You would have 10 listeners or whatever. And it just grew and grew and grew. And I think probably the most rewarding thing is when you have podcast listeners reach out and say, thank you so much for what you're doing, that it's helping me. And that was my mission, my goal all along, was just to help others heal and to help them understand that it is possible. You can heal yourself, you can change your life. And all it takes is a change in your mindset and knowing that you can do it. And there are a lot of tools out there to support you. And so we started doing this. And actually, when my book came out last January, it it came out at the worst possible time ever because my book came out in January, and in February my children's father committed suicide. And then
Mm.
in March COVID hit. So it was like, oh, well, this is and it's just not a great time to try to be promoting a book for many reasons. So it wasn't great timing, but I've still had many people reach out and say, thank you so much for writing that because we have very similar stories. And your book is helping me to have a more positive outlook on life and realize that I can move on with my life, and it's helping me heal. And that was the purpose in writing the book. I always say with everything I do, if I help one person, then it's worth it.
Oh yeah, that's right. The dog agrees too. It's definitely worth
Yes. Yes. So somebody probably just walked past my window. Sorry. She's very
it.
nosy. She likes to bark at people.
Well, it's humans' best friend, so protection, making sure no strangers come by and do nothing stupid.
Right. Although I don't know if somebody actually did come up to her, she'd probably run away in terror, but she
Oh.
has to act like she's tough.
All bark and no bite. Oh my goodness. Yeah, definitely rough. Definitely rough. Yeah, 2020, definitely one heck of the interesting year to say the least. And that's just the light way of putting it, because it
Yeah.
could go so many ways with it. But you're able to pivot and really take your podcast to the next level, to where it's usually every other day a new episode goes live, whether it's teaching from yourself or a wonderful, lovely guest on the magical show. So, was it the extra time where folks were trapped in the house, where it's like, all right, I did some inner work, some inner healing, maybe I should really ramp this up on my own, or was it something else that made you want to just ramp up the schedule and turn up the feet? I mean,
Well,
turn up the
actually,
fire.
I have to say, I used to record 5 days a week. And when it first started, for probably the first 2 years, it was 5 days a week. And I just got to where it was exhausting. And because I still am teaching during the day, and teaching during this pandemic has been a lot of fun too. Said very sarcastically. So I had to take it down to 3 days a week because I just didn't have the energy to put into the 5, and I didn't want it to get repetitive. But the amazing thing is that this is what has shifted for me is I never had guests on at first. It was just me talking about different topics. So yeah, 5 days a week, just me coming up with new topics every day is, yeah, I'm surprised I still have a brain left, but a little exhausting. But now that I've taken it down to 3 days a week and I've added so many amazing guests like yourself, it's added so much more value, I think, to the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. Some valuable stuff indeed. It's definitely some good stuff. Yeah, because definitely the solo episodes. Your voice is freaking awesome, by the way. So like, definitely gotta check that out. Of course, Dr. Allison's episode's freaking awesome. Like so many awesome episodes, and no pun intended. And what I love about you being able to really turn your setbacks into a story forward, to be honest, is the fact that your book, Beautifully Broken, it was picked up by a children's book company, right?
Yeah, it was. This was the interesting thing. When I wanted to publish a book, I have no clue what I was doing. And some people were like, oh, you should self publish. And some people said, oh, well, search for a publisher. So I just started sending my manuscript out to anyone who would read it, all of these companies. And I just threw out to the universe, I said, align this with whoever is supposed to read this to pick it up, just okay, it's in your hands now, basically, is what I said. I did the work, I put it out there, now it's in your hands. And I sent it to a children's book author just because it was someone that I knew had worked with her. And she said, well, I'm not really looking for any books to publish right now, but I'll read it. And then she got back to me and said, okay, I have to publish this book. So it went from there, and I don't think she'd ever planned on it, and she wasn't really used to publishing adult books, but she loved the content, and she also was a Reiki practitioner as well as a publisher. And so there was just a bond there, and we both felt like this was just, it had to get out there to help others.
Oh yeah, that's right. Definitely say that again because I'm pretty sure the divorce rates skyrocketed. Also, hear that some of the marriage rates were boosted a bit too. So it's kind of interesting. So being well, not newly divorced, obviously, but being divorced and being a single mom. Any advice for the other single moms out there for basically for anything like self care? Just really just trying to keep your head on straight because you have to have multiple personalities, somewhat, because you have to both be caring and sometimes disciplinarian.
Yeah, I was gonna say number one, don't skip on the self-care because you cannot be a good mom to your kids if you're worn out, exhausted, and just depleted. And there's so many ways you can do excellent self-care. Like, even if money is an issue, which sometimes it can be if you're a single parent, some ways that you can do self-care, you can go outside and take a walk in nature. You can take a hot bath with relaxing music and essential oils or Epsom salts. You can go buy yourself that shirt that you've been eyeing, treat yourself, do something nice for yourself. And everyone is different. Sometimes it can just be, I'm going to take an hour to read a book that really inspires me, or I'm going to take an hour and binge watch that trashy show on Netflix because I'm going to take some time to myself. All of that is self care. It's doing things that help you to relax, refill your cup. I definitely highly recommend doing meditation because it's what keeps you centered and balanced. And there are quick meditations you can do that are only 3 minutes. I have meditations on my YouTube channel that are free. You just go there and you can do them in there, balancing your energy. And that is a great way to really take care of yourself because at the end of the day, you come home and you don't even want to get off the couch. You're so exhausted. I know that's how it is being a single parent. And so you've got to find ways to take care of yourself because when you don't, it turns into your body telling you you're not taking care of yourself by manifesting physical illness. So it's super important for you to take care of your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical being. So try to get out and move when you can. Try to nourish your body in a healthy way, drinking lots of water, making sure you're trying to get plenty of sleep. And again, I know it's not always easy, but it is so important. You cannot fill anyone else's cup when yours is empty. It's just like what they say in the airline. They tell you to put your own mask on first before you put on your child's mask, because you can't help your child if you're passed out with no oxygen. And it's the same way in life. You can't help them, and you can't be a good parent if you're stretched so thin you have nothing left to give.
Oh yeah, that's right. You can definitely say that again. That's right. Because I mean, the only time you should pour from an empty cup is if you're playing house with the little ones, right?
Right. It's not empty. You gotta imagine it's full of tea and coffee or whatever they want you to think is in the cup.
There you go. That's right. Some of that imagination. That's right.
That's right. And, don't beat yourself up about having to be the tough parent. I was definitely put in the role where good cop, bad cop, and I was always the bad cop, and it was not fun. But rules are important, and the structure gives your children the opportunity to learn their boundaries and what, is healthy for them and what is not healthy for them. And I have an awesome chapter in my book called Parenting: The Toughest Job You Will Ever Fail. And in it, I give you tips on how to parent with boundaries, healthy boundaries. And there are some awesome tools and resources out there. Parenting with Boundaries is one of the books that I talk about that I had read that helped me so much. And they have a parenting children and parenting teenagers, because teenagers are a whole different beast. And you could have a whole podcast on that alone, on the horrific task that parenting teenagers is. So doesn't matter what you do, don't beat yourself up, because we all fail at times.
Oh yeah, definitely can say that again because we're all human. We're all flawed here.
Yes.
That's right. We're definitely all flawed indeed. So my goodness, so with all of this wonderful stuff in this journey, I hear you also was a people pleaser at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. From way back. I was the middle child. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I was the peacekeeper in the family. If my brother and sister were fighting, I would have to try to go in between, or if even my parents fighting, or, fighting with one of my siblings, I always tried to keep peace in the house. And I think that was the role that in your family dynamic, everyone has a role, and you take on that as you're growing up. And so we have to unlearn those roles sometimes when we become adults, because they're not particularly healthy, especially if you were raised in a toxic environment, which many people are. So I had to learn how to say no, and that no is not a bad word, to set healthy boundaries. That I was especially bad at people being able to manipulate me with their emotions when people cried, or especially because I'm an empath, I can pick up on other people's emotions much easier. So if somebody cries in front of me, of course, that made me feel bad. And I felt like I had to cave and give in to whatever it was that they wanted. And my ex husband, of course, took full advantage of that. And he learned very quickly that, hey, if I cry, she'll do what I want her to do.
Mm.
So I had to learn how to love myself again, because what I realized through all of it was that I didn't love myself very much. And I had to learn how to do that again. I had to learn how to, when I make decisions, think about what I want first and not what anybody else wants or needs. And I had to learn to put myself first, which I hadn't done. So that was a change for me. And I call myself now a reformed people pleaser, because I no longer do those things that I used to do, which is good because it was very draining emotionally.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's definitely no fun. Because it's like, hey, I aim to please. It's like, yeah, that's good and all, but don't do it like all the time because you can't please everybody. Because that's a it's like you're like ready for battle and you step on a landmine, taking your first step, trying to go that route.
Absolutely. And honestly, you'll never please everyone all of the time, but even if you please most of the people, the person who is not going to be happy is going to be you. You're going to feel resentful and drained and tired and taken advantage of. And that's no way to live. So when you start living for yourself, when you start speaking your truth and being authentic to who you really are, possibilities open up that are just amazing.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. Some magical possibilities. So speaking of possibilities, is there any one major possibility that became a reality in the past 6 months for you?
Well, you talk about pretty much my whole journey has opened up with possibilities. I talk a lot about manifesting because I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and that what we focus on grows. And when you shift your thinking, things shift for you. And I used to be a very negative person. I would be that, why is this always happening to me? And something would happen, something small, and I would blow up and it would blow it out of proportion. And that used to be me, and it's not me anymore. And I can see that in so many ways, but I can also testify that since I have started shifting my mindset, little things that used to upset me before, and it would end up being a big deal when I just learned to trust and say, okay, this is going to work out and it's not going to be a big deal. The universe makes a way, and all of a sudden, it's a lot easier than it would have been had I reacted the way that I used to. But also, a lot of opportunities open up, like you reaching out and contacting me. I've had opportunities from other people reaching out and saying, hey, I want to help you. I want to, feature you and this or that. So many different things have opened up for me as far as my business. And even just a year ago, I was working in a school district where I had to drive an hour away to and from my home to work. And it was not fun. And I had worked there for 13 years. And I was manifesting. I was like, please get me a job closer to home because this is just, not fun. And I ended up manifesting a job where my kids went to school 5 minutes from where I live. So now I have a 5 minute commute. I got to spend my kids' senior years with them in the school they went to, which was a really good thing considering everything they went through that senior year. But I don't think any of those things would have happened had I not had a positive mindset, had I not been attracting all of those amazing things in with my good thoughts and good energy.
Oh yeah, that's right. And of course, the lovely royalty on your head too, with the purple.
Yeah. Well, everyone thinks that I have purple because I'm going through a midlife crisis, but that's actually not actually there is a good reason why I have purple in my hair. My mom actually this last year found out that she had pancreatic cancer, and luckily, I mean, she is one of the lucky ones. They found it in time, and she's gone through treatment. She should be. I mean, there's no more cancer, but she's continuing the chemo until June or July because they just want to make sure that they got it all. So she was very lucky, and purple is the color for pancreatic cancer awareness. So I dyed it for her, but I know that people who don't really know me that well probably think I am just going through a midlife crisis and I'm trying to look cool.
Well, you look freaking sexy with it. I learned something new today. Yeah, because,
I
man,
don't look like I'm going through midlife.
No, I wouldn't say so. Because you're one of the folks that can actually pull off that different color hair and it actually looks good on you. I remember one time, I think it was, my goodness, it was 8 years ago. My goodness, someone tried to rock some blue hair, and let's just say it just made them look worse than they already did. They were overweight too, and it made it even worse. I'm like, oh, I can see why this person divorced you. All right.
Oh no, that's not good.
I didn't tell them that though. I was in my head. I wasn't that blunt to them.
If they're smacking you upside the head, you would have gotten an actual physical smack probably from the person if you would have told them what you were thinking.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, person was a good probably 280 pounds. I'm like, oh heck no. All right.
Yeah, keep that
Nah.
to yourself.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So this is far from your first rodeo on the guest side of the game. So is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often?
I guess what I wish people would just ask is what do you do when life knocks you off your feet? How do you cope with that? And to that, I would say that even if you get knocked down, you still have fight left in you. It's not over. no matter what happens to you. I know whenever my mom was diagnosed, her first immediate reaction was, I'm going to die. And she wanted to get a will and everything else. And I said, why are you jumping to that conclusion? You have no clue what's going to happen yet. We don't even know what the doctors have said. I'm like, you're going to manifest that in for yourself if you continue with that negative thinking. So, my advice to anyone who's going through something traumatic, because we all do, is to change the way you're looking at it. We can't control bad things that happen to us because we all have to face those things. What we can control is the way that we react to them and the way that we choose to see them. I choose to see that everything that happens to us serves a purpose. There is a purpose in all pain. Things happen to us to teach us lessons and to help us learn and grow. And we can either choose to be a victim and say, this isn't fair, and kick our feet and stomp the ground like toddlers, like we used to do, and say, it's not fair and I don't want to do this anymore. And you'll have your moments where you'll want to do that. But you can't stay in that space because nothing good ever comes from staying down on the ground and being in that negative mindset. What you have to realize is if you start shifting, start asking yourself, what is this trying to teach me? How can I learn from this? And how can I, not to sound cliche, but how can I take this lemon that was handed to me and try to make it into lemonade? How can I take this bad situation and try to make something good out of it? And you'll notice that a lot of people in life do that. They may have bad things happen to them, but like I, for example, have a podcast listener who had a sibling pass away of cancer, and she chose to make it her mission to help other people detect cancer earlier on and to bring more awareness to it. So out of something bad, she was able to turn it around and try to do something good from that. And we always have that possibility. We either can choose to only see the bad, or we can change our perspective. And I believe it was Wayne Dyer who said, when you shift the way you think about things, the things you think about will shift. So that's not the exact quote, but it essentially means that if you start changing the way you think about things and the way you look at things, those things are going to start changing too. And if you choose to shift that into a positive, those things are going to shift into more positive things as well.
Ah, yes, indeed. You can say that again. Definitely say that again, indeed. And for those listening, be sure to send some wonderful healing waves to Melissa's mighty mom, indeed, because that way she can stay stronger than ever that she comes out of this. Not only alive, but also thriving, indeed. Definitely want to mention that too.
Yeah, thank you.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow, but you were 25 again, and this time in 2021 with all of your knowledge and experience. So you'll basically be the youngest college mom ever. Like, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell myself to not sweat the small stuff and to have faith and trust that everything always works out perfectly the way that it is meant to work out. And just to focus instead on the things that are important, which is enjoying your life, spending time with your loved ones, doing the things that make you happy. You don't have to live your life for anybody else. You don't have to make anyone else happy. The most important thing is your own happiness. And once you start doing that, living your own life, living life to the fullest for you, everything else sort of falls into place.
Ah, that's right. Falls into place right there. That's right. You'll have that 3,000 piece puzzle solved, y'all. That's
Yeah.
right. Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. Don't sweat the small stuff, indeed. That's right. Leave the ants alone. They be all right.
Yeah,
They
that's
live.
right. They'll take care of themselves.
Literally. Oh my goodness. So for those who have this wonderful 3,000 piece puzzle, they need help with that first piece and they want to feel like another one of your clients, like having a peppermint patty, what's the best way for folks to reach out to the mighty Melissa and learn more about you and all the wonderful stuff you're doing?
Yeah, I love that. Well, you can go to my website, which is just melissaoatman.com. And from there, you'll see all of the services I offer. I offer one-on-one coaching, readings. I also have online courses in self-love. Also, you can get to my podcast from there. It's Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, which is available on iTunes, Google Podcast, Pandora, Spotify, pretty much everywhere. But there's also a page on my website for it. And you can follow me on social media if you wish. We have a wonderful Facebook group where I post inspiring messages every day just to keep your life and keep your mind positive.
Alrighty. Well, there you have it, folks. It's going to be all in the wonderful show notes. Head over to Melissa's wonderful website. Check out her podcast. Subscribe to it. There's some awesome content every week on the days you're not listening to this show because she has enough content to fill your ears for years, folks. It's good stuff indeed. And she also mentioned meditation earlier. She also has a couple fabulous guided meditations where you can hear the sexy voice of hers continued on past this episode too on her YouTube page as well. And be sure to buy 5,000 copies of her wonderful book, share with people, especially those who are recently divorced. I'm pretty sure they're going to need it. Definitely. Probably going to be
Yeah,
needing it.
absolutely. And just for your listeners too, I will send you a link that you can post if they want a free chapter of my book just to kind of get a feel for what it's like. They can sign up and get a free chapter.
There we go. That's right. She believes in the abundance, baby, law of attraction and abundance. She's got a free gift, y'all. So check that out. Click that link, leave your name, your email, collect all the awesomeness she has. Read that first chapter. It'll change your life. That's right. Multiple rolls of quarters at a time. It'll change your life.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, any closing thoughts before we close up the recording, Melissa?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on and just say to anyone out there who might be struggling, there is hope and there are people out there who can help you and help you bring about change. So don't give up. The sun always comes out after the storm, so everything is going to be all right.
How's it going, you super special, awesome human? Since you made it to the end of this episode, it looks like you really enjoyed yourself. Since you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share with at least 3 people in your network and tell them what you really liked about this episode. Heck, even shoot myself or the guest an email and let them know what you liked most about this interview so that way they can stay inspired to keep pushing out great work.